Bitcoin. Today we are talking about Bitcoin. Let me grab a sip of Bitcoin first. Coppery. So anyways, welcome back to ForkU. Today we're talking about Bitcoin and why it has value. So if you're outside of the world of cryptocurrency and you've ever heard the word Bitcoin, you've probably sat at home and thought, why the hell are people making so much money on just some lines of code? But Bitcoin isn't just lines of code. Bitcoin is a doorway, it's a narrative, it's a symbol, and it's a damn catchy name. Bitcoin. 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 So for Bitcoin to have had this much success, it must have been the first cryptocurrency, right? Not exactly. Bitcoin may have been the first successful cryptocurrency, but it was not the first thought or attempt at making a digital currency. I mean, in science fiction, since the early 20th century, we've been having the credit in novels and movies. That was kind of the first idea of a digital currency. And then there were attempts throughout the 80s and 90s. One of the first attempts that I found in my research was one in the Netherlands in which they wanted to use an electronic currency so that they could protect the money in petrol stations overnight. Then in the 90s, there was even a company called DigiCash, which sounds a lot like a modern cryptocurrency. And DigiCash went bankrupt after rejecting a $180 million deal to put DigiCash on every Windows PC. That sucks. Even had a web hybrid version of gold where users would send in their old gold, their old silver, and they would get e-gold. So literally digital gold. It was digital gold far before Bitcoin was even called digital gold, but it never really took off. It ran into some trouble with regulations. So then as the years went on in the 2000s, there were other attempts such as B-Money and BitGold. B-Money was even referenced by Satoshi Nakomoto. I'll get to it, okay? Hold on. B-Money was even referenced by the creator of Bitcoin. So who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Well, no one knows for sure, but in 2008, a paper was released to a mailing list for those interested in cryptography titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system by one Satoshi Nakamoto. But to this day, nobody really knows who Satoshi Nakomoto is. Whoever he was, it was clear that he was watching these other failed attempts at digital currencies and learning. And then in 2009, in January, Nakamoto created the Genesis block, and people began mining Bitcoin. Back then, nobody had any idea how valuable Bitcoin might become, with the value back then being less than 1/10 of a cent. Wait, so 2008, January 2009, wasn't that right around the worst financial crisis in the history of America since the Great Depression, when every bank in America f***ed over the American people? You think it's a coincidence that Satoshi released the Bitcoin software around this time?
Coincidence? I think not!
So if you've taken any intro to economics class, you've probably had a conversation about money. I remember my own high school econ class with Mr. Anderson. He held up a $20 bill, or maybe it was a $50 bill, and he explained that the only reason that we could use this little piece of paper is because people believed that it had value. People have referred to money as a belief system, and some have even called it a shared delusion. So here I have a dollar bill and a single ruble. Now, these are nowhere close to each other in value, but why not? I mean, why doesn't $1 equal 1 ruble equal 1 kwai equal 1 euro? Well, just the very act of making money doesn't give it a specific value. It's based on belief. And similarly, Bitcoin does not earn its value simply because it's on the blockchain and it's mined. It's its belief. Because a digital currency is not usually tied to the physical world, belief is the only real way that it has to build value. It is the only thing separating it from simply being a bunch of lines of code. One of the big reasons behind the belief in Bitcoin that I believe gives its value is its narrative. Bitcoin has always held a positive narrative. Again, to go back to an intro class, if you've ever sat in a freshman communications class in college, you probably had your professor say something along the lines of, human beings need narrative. But not only do we need narrative, human beings are addicted to narrative. It's what makes us spend a whole night binging 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. It's what gets politicians elected, what rallies people behind a war, and what makes us believe in romance and true love. So in 2008 and 2009, the financial crisis created this narrative in which every major financial institution was a villain. And there was seemingly no hero, but for a lot of people now, the emergence of Satoshi Nakamoto and the Bitcoin software created a hero that people could believe in that could beat the financial institutions. Bitcoin's narrative is powerful on the internet in the way that the resurrection is powerful to millions of Christian followers. Satoshi Nakamoto's mysterious character demands a reverence that's Christ-like. Was he a secret genius? Was he a team? Will he emerge one day to tell us the one true coin? In actuality, he was probably a team of developers, but that doesn't really play as well. Bitcoin's central pillar is decentralization and currency for the people by the people. When you attach a specific person to that, you lose a lot of the power. When you're using the currency of God, all other currencies are simply false prophets. So Bitcoin is also really smartly designed. The B symbol with the two lines through it, slightly turned to the side, challenges traditional symbols of money purposefully, and the orange of it is really bright and eye-catching, and the overall design is really minimalist. It's the kind of design that you could imagine diving into a pool of, Scrooge McDuck style.
I love to dive around in it like a porpoise and burrow through it like a gopher.
So let's pause for a second and talk about the power of good design. If you look at the top 10 cryptocurrencies on CoinMarketCap, you'll find 10 aesthetically pleasing logos and 10 catchy names. Is this the whole story of their value? No, absolutely not, but it's still very interesting to know. Bitcoin is not only a powerful belief system, but it is also a resource. This can be better understood when you compare it to its physical analog, gold. Both are in limited supply and both are mined. So Bitcoin has a limited supply of 21 million coins. There will never be more Bitcoin and there cannot be more Bitcoin. This is a really important distinction from normal money because if you look at history, there are numerous cases of governments printing money to try and fix the economy that leads to hyperinflation and often a crash of the whole economy. Satoshi Nakomoto is never just going to emerge from the darkness and say, uh-oh, there are 20 million more Bitcoins, have fun. Just not going to happen. He can't because of the nature of Bitcoin's protocol and blockchain. Bitcoin, also like gold, is a store of value. If you have a vault in your house full of 20 gold bricks, it's counted in your overall wealth. Similarly, if you have a wallet with 1,000 Bitcoin, that's also counted in your overall wealth, whether you spend them or not. You still have the value of that Bitcoin or that gold. But some people have said that, well, Bitcoin can be forked, so it's not actually like gold at all. Oh, but what's a fork? Well, a fork is when a developer takes the existing protocol of a coin and changes it in a way so that it is incompatible with the beginning of the blockchain before the fork, and they create a whole new currency. And that's where the name ForkU comes from, in case you were wondering. So by changing the Bitcoin blockchain and underlying protocol, you create new currencies such as Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, etc. And similarly to gold, when you create like white gold and pink gold, you're not changing the value of gold and you're not changing the value of Bitcoin. Bitcoin and gold still hold their higher status because of their status in the community and the overall belief in them. No matter what fork you make of gold, no matter what fork you make of Bitcoin, nobody is going to think that that fork is somehow more valuable than the original. So there are new altcoins that emerge every day, and not every altcoin is trying to compete with Bitcoin for the coveted title of digital gold. There are asset tokens, utility tokens, equity tokens, and even shitcoins. Most cryptocurrencies do not have enough power to stand on their own in the crypto market, so you'll be hard-pressed to find a coin that you don't need to use Bitcoin as an intermediary to get into. This is what makes Bitcoin the doorway into the crypto world, and another thing that gives it an immense amount of value. Because the world of cryptocurrency has been built around Bitcoin's journey to its multi-thousand-dollar valuation, you'll be hard-pressed to find a cryptocurrency that doesn't somehow connect back to Bitcoin. Okay, yes, also Ethereum, but this isn't Ethereum's time, Becky. Stop stealing the spotlight. So Bitcoin and gold are not only stores of value, they're status symbols. I mean, 50 Cent tried to revive his career just by talking about Bitcoin.
Hey kids, it's back to school time. And what do you get the best for the lowest price? The 50 cent store.
That didn't turn out so well. But it doesn't stop there. Look at this post from Katy Perry on Instagram. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are the hot new thing. They're making everybody feel like they're on top of the world. And this brings me to a really important point about Bitcoin that I want to make, is that its value, its extremely high value, is dangerous. Yes, I mean dangerous. In the early days of Bitcoin, yes, there were stories about ordinary people who became lucky millionaires in a few years. Some people who put $10 in and then later pulled out millions of dollars and they're sitting pretty. But imagine for a second that there was somebody who put $1,000 in. These are the people who have benefited most from the valuation of Bitcoin. Banking for the unbanked? Not so much. So you've probably seen in many sci-fi movies some sort of elite class that has money beyond your wildest imaginations, and they can do relatively whatever they want because of that money. Now stop imagining, because that's kind of the reality we're getting into with Bitcoin billionaires. So in a Forbes article, it was estimated that 40% of the world's Bitcoin is owned by a mere 1,000 people. So if we do some quick math, that's $137 billion for the current Bitcoin market cap. 40% of that is $55 billion roughly, split amongst 1,000 people. Now you probably remember a study that's come out in the last couple years that said that 1% of the world owns 50% of the world's wealth, and this probably pissed you off. It's worth getting pissed off over, it's really upsetting. But let's look back at the crypto market. With a conservative estimate of 50 million people in the overall crypto market, that's adjusted for double wallets and everything like that, these 1,000 people make up 0.002% of the overall crypto community, and they control 40% of the Bitcoin. And if you think they're only invested in Bitcoin, then you're dreaming, because if you got into Bitcoin early enough, they've gotten into other coins, they probably control more than 50% of the crypto market. Cryptocurrency right now, if it stays on this same track, is creating the exact same problem with wealth inequality that we already have, and worse. Because it's anonymous. You're creating the same terrible 1% that everybody hates, except we won't know who it is. So you're just fucking up the world if you let cryptocurrency go in the same way that it's gonna go. And you're not creating a new world order, you're creating the kind of new world order where we have secret dictators that do whatever the fuck they want. So Bitcoin is a really crazy concept. I hope maybe this video gave you some idea of why it has value from a non-technical perspective, and hopefully made you realize some of the problems with cryptocurrency that people aren't looking at. Let me know what you thought of all these things in the comments below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and slap the bell before you go. And all of my social media links are below. I am ForkU Official on Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, Twitter, and Steemit. I don't know why I just did that finger thing right there. Thanks for watching. Bye. That's ForkU.